All the Way is a really, really interesting film. This was released in 2016. It's directed by Jay Roach. It's written by Robert Schenken, adapted from the play by Schenken, and we have a cast including Bryan Cranston and Anthony Mackie. And I watched this purely by coincidence, but a couple of days ago I watched Jackie, which is about Jacqueline Kennedy in the aftermath of the assassination of JFK, and All the Way is about Lyndon B. Johnson becoming president after the assassination. So just purely by coincidence, I'm watching these almost back to back. And I don't know that much about JFK, so that was interesting. I know even less about Lyndon B. Johnson. So I went into this with no expectations, but with a hope to learn a lot. And I did. That's not to say I absorbed every aspect, and I'm sure there are things that went over my head because it's not my area of expertise. And with that, I obviously can't confirm whether it's 100% factually accurate. However, it's worth mentioning that it has 7.2 out of 10 on IMDb across 16,000 reviews and ratings, which is a really strong score, and I'm going to assume then that it's pretty factually accurate. It is, of course, about Johnson becoming president and what that's like. There's also a lot of focus on the Civil Rights Act, and that part of it I found to be really fascinating, and everything I thought was easy to understand, but they didn't oversimplify it. And as I said, there will be things in this that meant nothing to me or things that went over my head. But in general, I was able to follow what was happening. It was easy to understand what was going on from one point to the next. So if, like me, you're not that knowledgeable about Lyndon B. Johnson, you're not that knowledgeable about this time period, it's still going to be easy enough to follow. But I feel like if I were to watch it again, I'd probably pick up things that I didn't the first time, or indeed if I watched it in many years down the line, when hopefully my knowledge of this time period has just expanded for whatever reason, I would have maybe a different experience. But I certainly found it to be really fascinating, really eye-opening, informative, but not too heavy or complicated to understand. And I think Bryan Cranston did an amazing job with this. Again, I can't say he's exactly like Lyndon B. Johnson, but certainly the performance was really engaging, really effective, and the narrative is, from my amateur perspective, very well handled. The pacing is very good. There's always something going on. Often with biographical films that are political heavy, they can sometimes be a little dry. But I never really found this to be the case. I found it to be moving and sometimes inspiring with how passionate people were about various things, and it never really slowed down. And it's a reasonable length as well. And by that I mean it's over 2 hours. And generally for me, 2 hours is too long. I don't have the attention span for it. But I never really felt like I was looking at the clock with this one. It was really engaging right throughout. Great performances, very well executed narrative from my perspective, and generally it made me feel a lot of different emotions. I do think, that it's the kind of film where one could have a very different response depending on your knowledge and experience. I'm saying this as well as a British person. If I lived in the States or had American ancestors, maybe I would feel different. I don't know. But certainly from where I'm sitting, it was an enjoyable experience, a very powerful story, and generally a very well-written film. And I assume then, very well-written play. I will say I don't really want to see the play. The play is definitely not my kind of thing. That being said, if there was somebody in it I'd want to see, then by all means. But for me, as a film, it worked really, really well. And despite the length, I found it engaging pretty much from start to finish. If, like me, you're not that familiar with this time period or Lyndon B. Johnson's term as president, I'd say it's absolutely worth watching. And I also recommend watching it almost back-to-back with Jackie as well. That was a really interesting experience. If you're particularly knowledgeable about this time period, I'd love to know what you think of it. Is it an effective film? Is it accurate? Are there things you wish were done differently? What's the casting like? Obviously, I can't comment on those things. But from my perspective, I thought All the Way was a really good experience. Definitely a film that I enjoyed. And if you're curious to check it out, then I'd say it's definitely worth watching.